There's three things '03 did better, in my opinion. Qui-Gon's 30-mile nose. Windu's 20-story tall and breakdancing Grievous. His 30-mile nose was the best.
Yeah, the shocking.
Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs.
Yeah, dude, that's scary.
Nathan says, I remember watching you guys 6 years ago when I was 23 and single. Now I'm 29 and single.
That's why your name is Nathan Winning. You just don't stop winning.
You're winning, bro. Skeleton Crew, I'm going to go first. I think it's not Star Wars. I don't think it's anything that you're missing if you don't watch it. I don't think you're going to lose anything if you do watch it. It's a very basic show about like kids in space trying to find their way home, and they come across some trouble. It's a kids show, and I think it's warm, it's fuzzy, it's cute, and there isn't really too much to think about it. I like it.
From the 3 episodes I saw, I thought it was a good show, but it doesn't feel enough like Star Wars to me. And because of that, I've just started rereading the NJO books, because that is the Star Wars that I'm interested in. And, you know, I felt sort of hollow not having a new Star Wars release that I cared about in the holiday season, but going back to those old Legends books was pretty fulfilling. But from the 3 episodes that I saw, it's enjoyable. It's really good, but it's not anything that, I mean, I was excited for the next episode per se. Sitting there and watching it, it was an enjoyable time, but it sort of ended when the episode ended, and I just didn't feel the desire to go back and watch the most recent episodes. What do you think, man?
I like it. I love pirate themes though, and I'm thinking of 10-year-old me. I love this book called Ghost in the Noonday Sun, and it was kind of like has this thriller aspect, and there's mutiny and things like that. And I've seen a lot of samurai and cowboy in Star Wars, so to see pirates, thinking about a 10-year-old watching it, I think they would love it. Like I always say, when I watch a kid's show for Star Wars, I give it grace of like it's 30% slower than I'd want. This show is probably 50%. It has pacing issues, but I have a lot of fun with it. I love Jod. I love the betrayals. I like the Old Republic and the thought of a mint. The execution leaves a lot to be desired, but there's another part of me that in the back of my head that goes, bro, you're in an oasis. You're in a desert. They're giving you, like, you're dying of lore thirst, Star Wars thirst, and they're giving you a little sippy sip of muddy, sand water, and you're like, oh my, this is the best thing ever. Are you a moisture farmer? This is great. Is this from Tatooine? Like, why would I say Tatooine? It's horrible water. But like, so I don't know if in 5 years I'm going to be like, this is dope. But for now, I'm enjoying it. They better not leave us. I said it to Stoops before the show. They better not leave me on a cliffhanger on the last episode, or I will be pissed. I hate that because they're building so hardcore. But for my son, like any of my kids, when they get older, if they, around 10, I think I would show them Skeleton Crew. And I think for them, that's fine. And if we were getting like 25 shows that every single kind of demographic of Star Wars was catered to, nobody would care about the Skeleton Crew. They'll be like, oh, I put it on for the kids and it's a fun little romp. But because we're in that desert, it gets all eyes and scrutiny put on it, and I think that it suffers so much coming out after the Acolyte. That's a long ass explanation. I'm sorry for that.
How do you feel about it as a Star Wars show, though? So it may be a good show, but how is it? Like, when I watch Star Wars, there are certain elements that I'm expecting to see and hoping to like glean from it.
Right.
How does it stack up?
I have a different grading to you because the EU matters to me more than the core movies. So that Star Wars feeling isn't just a hope or what the hero's journey that George Lucas used and his motifs, a story that's really compelling to me set in the Star Wars universe. Having said that, there are stories like The Last Jedi has that. The aesthetic was kind of pretty. I like it. It was beautiful, the cinematography, but 15 minutes in, I had that hollow, dead feeling of this isn't a Star Wars story. And so I think it differs from person to person. But if you think about it from that lens of it needs to be Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, it doesn't quite hit the mark. But like I said, if you think, okay, it's a fun kids romp, a pirate Star Wars, like their first real attempt in a kids universe, it is fun. But again, you have to kind of turn the brain off a little bit, like, suspended disbelief. But Disney doesn't, the Acolyte, I was looking at it just going, this is like a poorly written RPG, like a JRPG. This should be like, Final Fantasy level dialogue. What's I love Final Fantasy, but you know what I mean? So like, there's not really, I don't even think Solo felt like like Star Wars. I think Rogue One was like, that was the closest that we got where I went, everything's kind of hitting the Star Wars notes.
Which is interesting because my favorite parts of Star Wars are like Jedi and Sith lore, and Rogue One was pretty minimal on that, but it still hit a lot of the notes of feeling like a big Star Wars project and a great grandiose film with aspects of the universe that hadn't been explored yet, like large scale battles. What does that look like in Star Wars on the ground? But I just feel like Skeleton Crew is lacking that initial intrigue for me, that hook. And it just hasn't happened.
Really, that was the part that I liked. I was like, I wanted to know more about Jod. I think Jude Law really chewed the scenes up. Anything he was in really kind of got me hooked. They had a lot of good actors in there. It just started to flounder by the end. If you'd watched the last 3 episodes,
yeah, we're like how to perform all of a sudden. We got the man in there himself, Nick, showing us how to do it with a freaking stick.
How to beat off a homeless man with a saber 101.
Yeah. So
I would hate to be the homeless guy that went up to Nick.
Nick.
I posted a few videos on TikTok about the real strong women in Star Wars after seeing the Wokalite, Mara Jade, Ahsoka, Jaina Solo, Leia, etc. Yeah, it's so funny how a lot of Acolyte fans who have never actually watched Star Wars, most of them, I would say, want to say that people don't like the Acolyte because there's women in it, when if you just do a little bit of research, there's actually a beloved sect of the fandom that loves a lot of the strong women in Star Wars. The Game of Thrones, the Hound replacing Ray Stevenson character in Ahsoka. So this is the other topic we wanted to chat about. I think it's probably one of their best choices to replace Ray. I think Ray was the best part of Ahsoka. Baylan Skoll was literally like the most interesting character that they had in the show. And I didn't really care about Ahsoka or Sabine or Ezra or any of the other characters when I was watching it. And that's simply because of how it was written, in the sense that Baylan was the most compelling and him and Shin were the most interesting. So I think if they want to continue that story with Baylan, then yeah, the Hound could probably do a pretty good job. What do you guys think?
I think so too. I think Baylan might be the best Disney Star Wars original character that they've made.
Yeah.
His just perception on the Force and his perception about life and the galaxy around him is so compelling. It's easily the best part of Ahsoka. I think that this actor, what's his name? Is it like
Rory
McCann? Is that right?
Yeah.
McCann?
Can we call him the Hound?
Rory McCann. Yeah, we can call that. I think that he's great. He's great in Game of Thrones, and the other stuff I've seen him in. He's a great choice. I think he brings a lot of the stature that Ray Stevenson brought to the character, and he has that intimidating aura, but he also has a level where he can be understanding and sympathetic, and it's just great casting because the Hound is very similar of a character to Baylan in those regards.
That's a good thread to put there. He is nuanced, and there is something, I think I said it last time, my love of characters is somebody who says like a dark side Force user, but does something counterintuitive, like respects the Jedi. And these things, it tickles your brain. You go, oh, that's interesting, I want to learn more about them. But like you said, Ray Stevenson was a big boy. Like, he was very broad, very imposing. His saber style, didn't he say it was something like Templar sword fighting? Like it wasn't Vader. I love that it wasn't Vader, but it still had that power.
Yeah.
It wasn't Form 5, but it just had it behind it. But again, he was very soft, and he was very understanding when he had to be, which I like the nuance, because there's nothing worse than a bad guy that's just barking at people 24/7, and they're not human. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when Disney portrays the Empire, you go, why the hell would you join these people if you're just going to die? Like, there's no upswing. There's just a bunch of pricks together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that right? Am I wrong? Would you ever join the Empire?
No. But I like the contrast of the Baylan character. Like you're saying, he's so physically intimidating and clearly massively powerful, but he's also soft-spoken and caring a little bit. And I think that some of the complexity of the character is when he sees that Shin isn't going down the path that he's going down, and he just releases her. And I'm super excited to see how that affects her moving forward. Does she feel a sense of abandonment, similar to, Ahsoka and what's going on with Sabine. What sort of path is Shin going to follow? Are there going to be consequences for severing that relationship later? These are all the questions that I want answers to.
You know, the Mortis arc and where Balin was headed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if there's a callback to Manskull's movies there? What if there's a
Like-
tie-in that they're doing?
On that planet?
Well, that's probably like if you're talking about the origin of the Force, the most abstract, you know, like the Force being intangible and embodied by the Father and the Son and the Daughter, that's the most tangible thing, representation of the Force itself that we've got. And then a man says, I'm going to show you the origin of the Force, and they're going to go Balin in another series is going to go explore that area. I don't know if that's tied together, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't something going on there.
It's difficult because a lot of that lore with the Celestials and the ones of Mortis is very, it's like ethereal and cosmic, and that can work, but I just rather get a story about the founding of the Jedi Order.
We just talked about people and their direct relationships because that's, I think, what we attach to.
Right.
I don't care. I like reading about a celestial moving planets like marbles and their stations that you stumble upon. I don't want a movie about it. I want people and their relationships and etc. You know what I mean? Like these big cosmic things. It's background lore for me.
A lot of my issue with this whole Balin and Shin story, and I know it's overplayed, but I think a lot of fans are feeling this way. We know where this story ends with the sequels. None of these big conflicts are mentioned in the sequels, so it already feels a little bit forced, but I don't know. I just hope that they can pull it off. Yep.
I think they're creating their own little time in between 6 and 7. And I think they're doing that for two reasons. Because first of all, there's a lot of time and there's a lot of stories they can tell. And the second is because they know deep down that the sequels were shit and they really destroyed the entire franchise and the fandom. And so if they create like a subsect that doesn't really involve or mention the sequels much, then maybe they'll have a better chance of, doing something successful in Star Wars that isn't so divisive and well, shit.
I can also see that decision being dictated by a sense of fear and like not wanting to break away from established characters.
100%. That anchor point where it's like, well, they'll come to the movies if we meant they were originally going to put Yoda in the Acolyte. He was the anchor, and they bailed on that. But 100%. That's why I think it's fear, the dark side.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Yeah.
Well, it's a galaxy. They could go to any number of planets coinciding with A New Hope. There could be something happening across the galaxy that is mind-blowing, that has nothing to do with it, but they just, you know what I mean? Like, when Manskull said, I feel bound to the lore, I'm like, it's a universe. You are unbound.
Did Palpatine plant the visions of Padme dying or just read Anakin's mind?
I don't know.
I think he read Anakin's mind.
I go back and forth. I always struggle with how much is Palpatine involved with all that. Like, is he really the one that killed Padme, or is it something else? Like, so interesting.
Elon Musk posted this. Has 91 million views.
That's heartbreaking.
It looks like a freaking movie.
Yeah, people say, "Oh, I'd love to live in the Fallout." Yeah, the Fallout universe. I'm like, no, that's it, dude. You do not like that. You don't wish it on your worst enemy.
This is like what happened to Maui just recently.
It does look just like an apocalypse movie. That's so awful. Oh my gosh. People are saying the aerial view of the city is way worse than even that.
Aerial view. There's an aerial view? Wow.
There's a shot and it's the grid, but it's just burnt down. It looks crazy.
What do you guys think about this? Both Ahsoka and Obi-Wan removed half of Vader's mask. If they both would have been there for him, they could have kept Anakin from becoming Vader. But it was just very far gone at that point. The Jedi failed Anakin with his mom. They failed him with Padme. And to be honest, they failed him with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan never should have been his master.
Never.
He wasn't ready. What do you guys think?
Never. I think the importance of that story is Luke is the only one that can redeem him.
Who is set to co-write and direct Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi, recently teased that his prequel will aim to find a way on the page to say something original about the origin of the Force without relying too much on the franchise's established lore. Now, whenever they do this shit, these guys like to put their own spin on Star Wars. And it's like, it's already there. Take what's already there and apply it and make it into a movie. Put it on screen. I don't know why they feel they have to go and make their own crap, because it usually doesn't end up too good.
Well,
To
they
me,
don't
the
care
really
about
important-
handcuffing themselves to the lore anyway. We saw that with the Acolyte.
Oh god. To me, the really important aspects are the freedom to make something new. And I, in relation to Star Wars, have been working on a script and we'll see what happens. It's like, yeah, you want to make something new, but why? You're making something about Star Wars. Like the lore and shit is already there. We just need to stay true to that. Like, talk about the Thoyor, talk about them coming to Tython, talk about all of them going to Ashla and Bogan, and cover that whole story. There's so much that they can actually adapt. They just need to freaking actually look at the source material. What do you think, Dash?
There's two things. One, I'd say that the hardest part of mythology is the beginning and the end, because the more you get to the beginning, the more you have to keep it like primordial and abstract. And there was definitely parts of that story I didn't love, like the guy, whatever his name was, Zesh, and the Rakatans using people as human batteries to power their ships. So I was like, that's a little bit out there for me. But I agree that there's so much of the EU to mine. We keep thumping the book over and over, like just use what's already there. But the thing that just caught me when you read that was he didn't say the origin of the Jedi. He said the origin of the Force itself. And I'm like, what?
Oh, shit. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
You stumble over a rock and you're like, hey, there's a little pocket of Force here. Like, how do you find is it going to be the father and the son? Like,
oh my gosh,
it's such an abstract, even like idea. How do you contextualize that into an easy to understand thing for audiences and make it tangible, but also exciting? Like that's way too nebulous for me personally. The origin of the Force, like the Force was birthed.
That's like making a movie on where everything began, how the universe was born. And it's like, that's going to be controversial right off the bat. Now you're doing it with Star Wars? Shit. Good luck.
Well, the origin of the Force and the origin of the Jedi are like two very different stories. And one is fleshed out in Star Wars Legends, which is the origin of the Jedi, which is the story that I think we all want. And the other is going around and mucking in areas that are already just perfect. Like the Force is great because it's not explicitly defined all the time. So when you attempt to explain that away, it loses the mystery behind it.
I have a question. Can a trilogy be retconned or be non-canon? And if so, how? Yeah, of course, if they want to. It just like what they did with the EU. It's as simple as saying it no longer counts.
You don't think too much time has passed, like that the average person, like that, because that's what I think. Like it would make sense for Star Wars fans, but if I tried to explain to like my dad that the Star Wars sequels don't matter now and we're doing new ones, he would look at me like I was insane. So that's where I struggle.
I don't think the average Joe knows about canon or continuity. Like they go to the cinema. I remember when I stood out front of the line of Attack of the Clones in 2002, I think it was, and the dude in front of me bought a ticket and he said, I want like tickets for cinema. He's like, I want 4 tickets to the movie Yoda Goes Nuts, because he spoiled it, because like he heard about the Yoda part. Like that's all people most people just don't give a shit about canon or continuity. You know what I mean? It's just like Marvel, when they set up the phases, people generally started to learn about that, but it's been so long and it's such a mess, and they go back on it that people is just like, there's a Star Wars thing happening. When's it set? I don't even know when Skeleton Crew's set. I haven't even really thought about it.
The only reason to like do away with it would be to do it right. But I just struggle with,
That's
do you do
said.
do you do it animated? Do you do it like, it's just so hard. I don't know. I wish it could happen, but it would be a logistical nightmare.
Now at FurySabers.com, fulfill your destiny. Do what must be done. Fund the fan film. And we shall have peace.